The following is a shortcut from The Other Side Australia, a new podcast to bring you up to speed on the news and views of the week, especially designed for Aussies, that uploads every Friday morning on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and all good podcast platforms. The Chief of the Defence Force, Angus Campbell, is no doubt under a lot of pressure following the big report that revealed those hideous allegations of murder by a small group of SAS soldiers in Afghanistan. These 39 alleged incidents of what appear to be unlawful killings of unarmed prisoners and civilians, if proven in court, are inexcusable, and they're a disgrace to the SAS and the ADF and the nation. We need to get to the bottom of why they happened. We need to get to the bottom of the cultural environment that enabled that kind of psychology to take hold in such a sizable group of people, and we need to work out how to prevent that in the future. But all of that doesn't excuse the Defence Force Chief's bizarre decision to go ahead and tar all of our great and noble SAS soldiers, including those who gave their lives for our freedom, tar them with the same brush by announcing that up to 3,000 soldiers would be stripped of a meritorious unit citation. The government expressed concern over that plan straight away, and it seems like it's going to be walked back. I certainly hope so. General Campbell's argument and thinking was wrong, in my view. He said that soldiers who served in Afghanistan around the same time of those alleged murders should be stripped of their awards because the collective award wasn't sustainable because the number of allegations that existed in that Brereton report. Well, what he's basically saying, if what we know of the report is true, is that because around 20 soldiers, just 20, allegedly, and I stress allegedly, because they haven't had their day in court yet, and they shouldn't be denied the presumption of innocence either. Because they acted with gross dishonour, all 3,000 should suffer a kind of collective punishment by association? No, they shouldn't. That isn't okay. And if my outrage sounds a little strong, it's because of the effect it's having on the 3,000 and the families of those of the 3,000 who are no longer with us because they gave their lives for our freedom. There have been 700 suicides of veterans since 2001. That's an average of around 3 every month. But not this past month. This past month, it was 11. Someone who works really closely with the families and the veterans suffering from the effects of their service is prominent Special Forces veteran Heston Russell. Heston Russell spoke to the media earlier this week.
I call on the government here and now to help the Australian public and the military to move forward from this investigation that was 7 years ago, allow those who have to answer for any alleged crimes to do so, but now to support our veterans, our families, and now having shown that they spent over the last 6 months premeditating actions without supporting them, it's unexcusable. They have lost my trust, and they have lost the trust of so many veterans and their families.
Those accused of the 39 alleged murders of Afghan civilians and prisoners of war, shouldn't those soldiers have lost your trust too?
When they are proven to have done so, they will have lost my trust. Again, why are we making decisions here and now on credible information and not allowing due process? Can we please have these conversations when we actually have facts proven through the legal process and not opinions? I was there on the ground. I do not see these things. If any of you here were on the ground and saw them, please feel free to speak up. Otherwise, let's allow the process to do what it's been designed to do under our democratic system.
Prominent Special Forces veteran Heston Russell there. Now, all of this has quite significant implications. It's dangerous, not just for those struggling with mental illness as a result of their service, but it's dangerous for the nation. Because if this is how we treat our best and bravest and those who died for us, what kind of message does it send to those who might want to serve in the future? And what about the children of the 20 fallen veterans who this Christmas, as in perhaps previous Christmases, look to those medals as a symbol of the honour and respect and the sacrifice that was made by their father, and that helps them grieve and get through every Christmas without their father. To extend the suffering to 3,000 other people who had nothing to do with these allegations that are still as yet not proven is ridiculous. It sounds like the work of detached desk jockey bureaucrats, and there's too many of those in our governments in Australia. But I didn't serve, so let's hear more from the guy who did, Special Forces veteran Heston Russell.
I believe that these allegations are shocking and have to be now passed on to criminal investigation.
But isn't it the case that the whole unit doesn't go on trial, individuals go on trial? The Brereton report was looking at the behaviour of the whole unit, and that's what it's judged in the Brereton report. That doesn't need to go to a trial. That's judged by defence, isn't it?
So the Brereton report is judging the behaviour of a unit 7 years ago, as at the last report. Right here and now, the unit, including 2 squadron and 3,000 Special Forces personnel, are being judged on actions and opinions of culture from 7 years ago. How do you do that? I don't know. A report has gone on for 4.5 years. I'm looking forward to that report being pushed forward to the Office of the Special Investigator. I was there as a part of that culture. I saw warrior culture that saved lives. I also saw situations that were beyond any comprehension. I can't make the decisions for everyone who was there. I can just talk to my own lived experience. And as an Australian, stand here, ask for due process to be afforded.
So basically, these citations being taken away wasn't the only ingenious idea from the Defence Ministry. They also decided to completely disband the SAS Regiment's 2 Squadron. Why? This is just an operationally pointless act. It's only symbolic. And it's only going to cause pain to all the good men who served in that regiment throughout history. What are we trying to do here? Is this some PR thing being run by the PR department of the Defence Department? They think if they do all these symbolic, silly things, it's going to have a positive effect? I don't think it's going to have a positive effect. I think it's going to backfire hideously. It's some of the worst crisis PR I've ever seen in my life, tactically. After a bit of a wobble, and she thought she was going to maybe turn this around, the Defence Minister, Senator Linda Reynolds, came out on Thursday afternoon and said, no, we're going to go ahead and with that disbandment. Unbelievable. Heston Russell himself is a former 2nd Commando Regiment officer. And he told those reporters back on Tuesday that 60 of his fellow SASR members had threatened to put in discharge papers, threatened to resign in protest.
So what you're seeing is soldiers and officers who have lost the trust of their senior commanders. We are talking about soldiers and officers who served in the unit during the 6-year period, during the Special Operations Task Group. 2 Squadron has been around since the 1960s. I'm getting calls from Vietnam veterans, Borneo veterans, Confrontasi and Iraq veterans. They are in outrage. 60% of the current unit never even deployed to Afghanistan, and they're all being collectively punished. They are being outraged by the values that are being demonstrated in collective punishment, in people being punished who weren't there, in people who served, fought under that insignia, to have it removed and stripped from an already volatile mental health crisis situation that we are currently in. They are putting in their discharge because they have lost trust that the government will have their back if they ask them to go overseas again and risk their lives.
What about the trust of Australians in these 60 to 65 SASR people? I mean, how can we trust them to follow orders now?
Well, all that I know, with over the 70,000 Australians who joined our petition for this citation alone, and the 100,000 more who are contacting and emailing us, that they have the trust of the Australian people, and the Australians have the trust of our government to allow them to be afforded the due process and to be proven guilty. They are innocent until proven guilty.
Have you spoken to any of the accused? If so, and Jackie as well, what's their mental health like at the moment? What are they telling you? And also, you said that those soldiers have lost the trust in the leadership. What does that mean for the Chief of the Defence Force, and is his position tenable right now?
I'll answer the second half, then I'll pass over to Senator Lambie. So I have lost trust in the Chief of the Defence Force and the Chief of Army. Behind closed doors and being informed by the defence public, I am hearing what is going on. I am hearing of soldiers receiving disciplinary and administrative action for commenting and liking Facebook posts expressing their opinion. Directives being pushed down through the Defence Force, preventing any defence person from speaking out. Actions being taken against associations who are stepping up to support their members, who are suffering the mental health scars of some of these decisions being made, and a lack of care being afforded to any past serving veterans and their families through decisions that have now been premeditated. I have lost their faith. Many other veterans have. They would be here speaking up if they could, but they cannot. That's where we're at.
That's SAS veteran Heston Russell there. Another critic of the government's handling of all of this is David Flint, Professor David Flint, the preeminent Australian legal academic. Professor Flint does a show called Take Back Your Country, which is also on the Good Source platform, along with our show, The Other Side. So I enjoy listening to Professor Flint, and he had some pretty strong views on his podcast this week about all of this and the way the government's been handling things.
By publishing the Brereton Report, even with the names hidden, meant that everybody in the SAS was assumed to be guilty. And the reactions have been predictable. The Australian people have been outraged, not only by the way in which the presumption of innocence has been disregarded, but especially in relation to the imposition of collective punishment against all those who served in given units, including those who died under the flag. The reaction of the communists was predictable, and the government should have known it would be predictable. Handing out a report like that, sending it around the world, would only do damage to the reputation of Australia. And of course, the communists decided to take advantage of this, and they took advantage by that outrageous post on Twitter, and Twitter left that there, unlike the way in which they remove things, for example, the allegations concerning Hunter Biden and the Biden family in the New York Post. The communists will only laugh at our outrage, and this was all predictable. The government should have known this was going to happen. We're caught in the situation because of the naivete of those who should be providing foresight and leadership.
That's Professor David Flint speaking on his podcast, also on the Good Source platform. Do check it out. It's called Take Back Your Country.